Hi, everybody. It's Thursday, July 3rd, 2025, and our friend Andrei Martyanov is back with us. Welcome back, Andrei.
My pleasure.
Donald Trump has decided not to send more weapons to Ukraine. Let's see what would happen with this decision. But here is what the US ambassador to NATO said on Fox News in terms of the policy. Maybe they're trying to change it in Ukraine. Here is what he said.
With you just a week after your time with President Trump at the NATO meeting. But first, give us your reaction to the U.S. holding back now on these weapons to Ukraine.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Maria. I think the most important thing to know is that this is what America First looks like. We first have to take care of the United States needs, and this is something the Pentagon does all the time, make sure that the United States has the strategic defense capabilities necessary to project power. And so we have to make sure that we have enough Patriot missiles and we have enough air defense and all the things that we need to ensure our own success on the battlefield, wherever that battlefield might be. You saw our great capabilities on the B-2 bombers when they dropped the precision-guided bunker busters on Iran. And so, the world wants that. We saw that with our NATO allies last week. They want to be allied with us so that we can bring those capabilities. And, we just need to make sure that we have what we need at any time to deter and defend ourselves on a credible basis.
Andrei, is that convincing for you that Donald Trump is going to back down, is going to somehow leave the scene in Ukraine?
No, it's all, yeah. And Mr. Whitaker, it's just, that's what U.S. media are today. It's a collection of the disjoint, incoherent psychobabble, a bunch of words and phrases stuck together, with no meaning, no sense. No, so we are getting into the dystopia of 1984, like those party congresses, and assemblies when the speaker will go out to the podium and will start creating sounds like which reminiscence of some words, but make no sense whatsoever. So that's what it is. This newspeak, the people who go and they absolutely have no clue what they're talking about. And no, United States will continue to do as much as possible, trying to shift their burden, if you wish, on Europe. But the problem is that, in some sense, Whitaker is correct, but that was warned including by yours truly, even during Biden administration, that essentially United States and NATO as a whole is on the verge of getting below what is called untouchable levels of their stores on the ammunition, smart weapons, and the number of the especially smart weapons, high precision weaponry and long range fires, which combined NATO produces, is pathetic. Russia outproduces it not just by several times, but the order of magnitude. And when you look at this, what does the United States have which can be used in the actual serious fight? Patriot Pack 3 is garbage. I mean, it's garbage which Russians made it the butt of the joke. It still can shoot down the aircraft, especially if it's, doing this out of ambush, which is normal tactics for the essentially suppressed air defense. So in this case, they simply have no other choice. It's not like it's some goodwill, and Trump would love nothing more than to see Russia, disintegrate and defeated, and and make America great again, things of this nature. But reality is, the reality is cold, hard facts on the ground, and the United States simply has not enough anything anymore. As simple as that. And United States military-industrial complex is primarily its commercial organization to produce a very expensive junk, which most of the time doesn't work. Some of it is decent, but then again, it also is not designed to fight on the modern battlefield. And suddenly they have this not only technological or industrial impotence, they have the doctrinal impotence. America's doctrine, as I already stated in Table of Organization and Equipment, TOE, are stuck in 1990s. They decided that they can do it with the arsenal of 1990. They can fight the war in 2025. boy, they were wrong. And so as a result, we see that, and yeah, he has no other option. It's not like he wants to. If he wanted to stop the war, he would have done it, well, almost half a year ago, okay? But he was continuing until they literally ran out of gas, and that's what it is.
Do you understand that it seems something going on the part of the West, Andrei, when Emmanuel Macron calls Putin to talk with him? Something happening. They know that they're not going to be able to continue this war against Russia in Ukraine. But the way that they want to put an end to the conflict or reaching some sort of settlement, do you think they're going to be more logical? They're going to be more rational than before?
They are taking from fear, quaking in their boots. Europe literally, soils its pants, which is good. Russians are enjoying this, watching this. Point is, it's not a secret, which was stated by Mr. Fico, it was stated by Mr. Orban, it was stated by Mr. Vucic, that actually the European leaders were trying to contact Vladimir Putin well before that. And actually, Macron called several times. Nobody answered, essentially. The only reason Putin took the call is because, obviously, he reiterated again, as he did today with Trump. He stated to Trump again today, all aims of special military operation will be achieved. There will be no ceasefires. There will be not, so we know what Russians are doing there. So, and the question is that they were trying, and now suddenly when they see that, United States stops and essentially ran out of gas, it's not because of the goodwill of the United States, but because they simply don't have anything. And they are very scared. Plus, for Macron, obviously, the Europeans, they don't have any, they really don't have any resources. I mean, they have some coal, they have some ores and things of this nature. They don't have energy, really. And Macron, though he is a teller boy, bank teller boy, even he understands that what happens if they really piece off Iran, okay? Because they were shocked by the response of Iran at Israel. And, Israel essentially begged the United States to somehow interfere in terms of trying to achieve some kind of the ceasefire, because Israel was being demolished, essentially, as in this 12-day war. And now they understand that, God forbid, something big happens in the Middle East. It will not be just that Iran will close the Strait of Hormuz. Israel cannot defeat Iran militarily. They cannot defeat Gaza militarily, okay? So, and even if United States gets in, then it's over for the Middle East. And guess what? Iran will attack not only they will wipe out the basically Israel of the face of the earth. They will actually destroy the oil production facilities in Saudi Arabia and elsewhere in the Middle East. Guess what happens then? Europe dies. Simple as that. And Europe is dependent on those deliveries of all kinds of the hydrocarbons. So, as you can see yourself, plus Macron called also because Russians continue to kill French volunteers, as you understand. The latest one was a week ago or so. They had this special forces of French, military, this mighty French, They were near Odessa when Mr. Iskander visited them. There, nobody lives there anymore, So Russians stated very clearly, and, on the level even of politicians, that you get any kind of the military contingent into Ukraine, you all die. Simple as that. And Macron, obviously, he was already accused last month by some people, even from his administration or the former officials, that, are you crazy? You want to send, French guys? They will be killed, and we already know they killed, and things of this nature. So it's French, little thingy, they hustle, which they do all the time. So that's why he called. They are afraid. They're shocked. They didn't expect this. And nobody expected that, you saw yourself that some places in Haifa and Tel Aviv and, Rishon LeZion, they look like Gaza 2.0. Iran delivered the message very clearly. So, And that's what we have. And the rest of it, the only thing they can do is PR. That's why they try to, pretend that they call and decide something which they don't.
Andrei, since you mentioned the situation in the Middle East, they're trying to somehow, when I look at the media, mainstream media in the West, they're trying
Yeah.
to draw a line between Iran and Russia, draw a line between Iran and Russia and Iran and China. Somehow it's saying that Iran is going to buy Chinese fighter jet, not Russian fighter. They're trying to manipulate everything
That's
as much as
totally
possible on their part. But
yeah.
what we know about the understanding, in my opinion, the understanding on the part of the governments, Chinese, Russian, and Iranian government, they totally understand each other. They know what they're doing. They so much connected, and I don't see these lines that the mainstream media is trying to draw between them.
If, as I already stated, if you are dealing with any kind of the Western establishment media personality, the so-called journalists, make sure that you have a good course of antibiotics after that, because these people are just, they're therapists, basically. They are not professionals. The only thing they can do is spin. They're Goebbelsonian propaganda. There is no difference between Goebbels and, the war criminals in Fox or CNN who actually, unleashed all that. Nima, are you there? You're frozen. Hello?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, so
yeah, I don't know.
and the question is, don't believe anything they write. They lie. That's the only thing they can do. I mean, they are they call spin doctors. They are morons. They are people without any professions. They are prostitutes in both in figurative senses. So there's no even point discussing this. But in terms of obviously Iran learning its lesson, and Mr. Pezeshkian being essentially, well, it's now, for now at least, it's the military political decisions are moved back to essentially the core of the guards of the Islamic Revolution. So, Mr. Arachi went immediately to Moscow on Monday and met Mr. Putin, and we can only, just guess what they were talking about, although we have a good idea. And then, of course, the defense minister of Iran, he spoke to Mr. Belousov on the phone first, then they meet again in China during the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And now we know for sure that actually Russia was delivering, and it will continue to deliver Su-35s. Iran does have now possession of Su-35s. It's just a matter if we know if they really use them during this 12-day war, because the first batch evidently was delivered sometime end of January, beginning February. Even Western media reported on that. So did they have the time to shake down the force? Because obviously you have to train pilots. They were trained in Russia, no doubt about it, but you probably have to train them within the confines of Iranian airspace. You have to develop infrastructure. So it's a long process. It's not like done in 1 or 2 days, or for that matter, even 1 or 2 months. So that's the only question. Other than that, Su-35. But again, Iran was negotiating about this J-10 thing, which is the light fighter. It's a sort of Chinese version of the F-16, if you wish, So completely different combat aircraft. And they were talking about this with China for 20 years. Especially very actively for the last 10 plus years. So it's nothing new. They present some old thing, and there are 2 different classes of the combat aircraft for a completely different tasks. And of course, Su-35s now, we know that. And the question now, and Vladimir Putin never says anything just because he says it. When this whole mayhem started, it was the veiled accusation, but very polite and very friendly, of Pezeshkian's administration when he stated, we offered the cooperation agreement or military cooperation, not just, and we offered air defense complexes, but Iran declined. Well, we know that actually Iranian parliament ratified the economic agreement, comprehensive agreement between Iran and Russia already in the middle of May. Guess what? It went to the signature of Pezeshkian only when the whole thing started in 16th of June when the missiles started to fly. Well, why it was being held back for a month? We know the answer now. We know this answer. Pezeshkian was trying to cure favor with the combined West, believing that West, we have this, urban intellectual, if you wish, class in Tehran and also other big cities of Iran who want to see themselves part of the West. They are obviously delusional, but this is what Pezeshkian did. And this valuable time when Russians could have come in and already basically provided the much needed air defense was lost. But obviously it's over. And now Moscow and Tehran are in much closer coordination. Same goes with, obviously, with Beijing. And that's pretty much how this whole thing changed the outlook. But yeah, I mean, it's a lesson to those morons in Tehran who still believe that somehow combined West wants Iran back in their fold and that they will return the money and then lift the sanctions. It's all crap, so, and now they better start living in their reality and indeed continue to develop there, which is absolutely critical, not only economic development, which is very important, obviously, but also the defense cooperation, especially with Russia.
I think for those countries like Iran that you've mentioned, these people who are part of the administration who believe that they can achieve something with the West without being powerful, without being strong. Because what we've seen with the case of Ukraine, Russia showed that if you want to deal with the West, you have to be strong, you have to respond.
Yeah.
With the case of China, Andrei, as well, with the tariff
Yeah.
war, China just went against the United States to make them understand their position and their might, their power to go against the United States. But it doesn't seem, I don't know what is this sort of mindset in Iran and why they're doing this. Because after all,
it's typical. It's typical. Urbanized, so-called intellectual class who doesn't hold any real jobs. They are all people from creative sphere. All those directors, writers. Philosophy doctors. Obviously university professors. Who think that they know the world outside. They don't. Obviously, only people with the military intel, serious, analytical apparatus know this. So, and as the result, you have this class, which is normal. Same as with Russia, albeit, special military operation changed it dramatically. So, and as much as and Iran has internal problems, no doubt about it. I'm not by any means idealizing Iran. There are issues, economic issues, obviously, there are all kinds of things there. But it is this class, I mean, they see only glitz of the West, this, facade, and they are not very bright people. And so, as a result, they push this agenda, including through the parliament, and, the obviously Pezeshkian, was kind of represents them, this moderates, as they call. Reality is you want to basically mitigate, as they call, regime of mullahs or whatever, so it will be achieved completely different way. It will be achieved through the economic development of Iran, based on their own resources and resources of BRICS, where she definitely belongs, and developing own, high-tech industries in this, and that will create this society of already serious professionals who will definitely approach it in a different way and will reform Iran completely on a, non-Western, the fundamental question, which is modernization possible without Westernization? Well, yeah, possible. Look at Russia. I mean, but again, Russia is part of the West essentially, culturally, but it doesn't mean that it has to be at the expense of your tradition. And for that matter, so the change will come through a different venues, so, and nobody says that it shouldn't, but it has to be totally Iranian decision. How Iranian people decide this, what they're gonna do it, so how they want to see their country. But obviously, the way or the path of Iran to serious modernity and actually real prosperity is obviously on path with BRICS, not with the West, which never returns Iranian money until West collapses itself completely and disintegrates. Then when people with the weapons and the torture skills will fly to Europe and start finding out those bankers who actually hid those money. That's simple as that. Simple as that. It's just the way it is.
We were talking about the importance of Central Asia for both Iran and Russia. And with the case of radical Islam, these Al Qaeda and these people.
Yeah.
But Andrei, something bigger than that, something different has happened during the war between Iran and Israel, and then with new tensions in Azerbaijan. What's going on? Israelis were using the airspace of Azerbaijan to attack Iran. Then they came with the new, I don't know, these Sputnik reporters. They were, I don't know, somehow manipulating the situation in Azerbaijan. It's all, they're making things up. They're trying to do something. They're trying to manipulate Azerbaijan against this situation in that region. Do you understand what's going on with Azerbaijan? It seems that it's going to be a great concern for both countries.
Well, I mean, Mr. Aliyev, obviously, he has his own political dynamics, and there is a strong nationalist and pro-Turkic sentiment. It's not only Israel, it's Turkey itself. And Mr. Erdogan is still obsessed with this idiotic idea about Great Turan, like Turkic people, Well, yeah, he tries, but the point is Turkey doesn't have resources to really implement anything like this. But it certainly can stir the pot, so no doubt about it. It doesn't mean that when you stir in the pot, you get anything, positive out of it. Look at the Great Britain, United Kingdom, or United States. They stirred the pot, they got humiliated, and they look now, and they are now the laughing stock of the world. But the point is, obviously, many people die, and problems are created, which, of course, how to say it, they think that they can control, they never control them. Again, they're not very bright people in Washington and London and Ankara, for that matter. There's a lot of bloviation and chest thumping. But yes, former ambassador of Iran to Azerbaijan gave interview recently to Pars Russian TV. Pars TV has a Russian segment. It's fascinating. He said, we already warned Azerbaijan that its airspace was used by all kinds of nasty people, and obviously say, oh, yeah, we know, we kind of deal with this. I don't think they dealt with it. And the issue here is now, what was the game? Well, guess what? Now everybody knows the game, that everybody, even Pezeshkian called Aliyev, evidently, and told him, you better stop this, because obviously the drones, which some of them were shot down by Iranian air defense, they were flying from Azerbaijan territory. And so goes probably for, those things flying at Russian territory too. So, as you understand, Russians know it. And again, when they started to deal with diaspora, well, I will drop some things which people have to understand. And this is not some kind of malice in this word. It's just stating with a cold, hard fact. Any diaspora is always a euphemism, at least partially, for the organized crime group. Unlike, for example, the Russian Union of Azerbaijanis, these are Russian citizens of Azerbaijani descent. They are law-abiding. They love their, motherland and things like that. So this diaspora, yeah, it was very much involved into all kinds of the nasty activities. And fact is, what is the funniest thing? I don't know why Azerbaijan reacted to the Safarov brothers, and all of them are actually Russian citizens. So they have to decide. Russians are not dealing, in particular, specifically, focusing on Azerbaijanis, although many of them from diaspora, they are involved in all kinds of nasty activities. But yes, I mean, they were Russian citizens. They were caught because of the, killings, murders, assassinations they ordered and perpetrated, especially during this horrendous time of 1990s. And so if Azerbaijan wants to react like this, well, it's Azerbaijan's choice. Obviously, they are being manipulated, especially not very bright nationalist element, into their creating some kind of detention on Russian border. Well, Russians have the ways to create for Azerbaijan horrendous problems. And now, obviously, Azerbaijan also have issues with Iran, and Iranians were pretty much, straightforward, like, you stop this, just that's how usually Iran does it. So, well, what can I say? Now that they took care of Nagorno-Karabakh, they think that they can discard Russia. But obviously, there is another factor. Attacks of Russian airspace forces on especially facilities, the oil processing facilities in Ukraine. Guess what? Much of this oil there is from Azerbaijan. It was refineries, and Russians hit those refineries. Not because they want to do something against Azerbaijan. They just kill generally, former Ukrainian economy. But it just happens so that much of this oil goes from Azerbaijan, and obviously they are not happy. Well, you shouldn't have done this, but they always played those games, and obviously they think that Turkey somehow will support them. But Turkey, for all its import in the region, it's still a regional country. It's not a superpower, and it could be brought to some kind of order if Russians decide to, as they did in 2016 when Turkey shut down the Russian Su-24. You remember what happened? Suddenly, the flow of tourists was completely halted. The Turkey produce, which being shipped to Russia, was also stopped, and Turkey basically surrendered within a couple of weeks. And that's simple as that. And the same can happen to Azerbaijan, especially considering that Azerbaijan has millions of Azerbaijanis living in Russia. Most of those Azerbaijanis, they are normal, decent people. Many of them are Russian patriots, and so it's and obviously they provide much needed cash flow back to Azerbaijan proper. And we know there are obviously issues with the northern Azerbaijan and Iran, but that's a whole other can of worms there. So, and well, somebody lost the plot in official Baku. And what can I say? If they want to play the game, it's like, do you want to, being a lightweight, go in the ring with Mike Tyson when it is peak form? I don't think so. So, and we'll see. We'll have to wait and see.
Somehow it's so different or strange that you see Azerbaijan has refineries in Ukraine and Israelis are in Azerbaijan, and nobody knows what they're doing there.
Now we know what they do.
Yeah. And Ukrainians are training these jihadis in Syria. It's somehow the game is so obvious. The game is so on the surface, and nobody would buy anything from the West, from the way that they're trying to manipulate everything. I think there is. I assume that Russia, Iran, even China, with Uyghurs are in Syria. They have to have some sort of understanding about what's going on and the future conflicts. It doesn't seem, Andrei, that they're going to give up with the case of Ukraine may die because they're not capable of the continuation of the conflict, but they may bring something up in other region, in other countries.
Yeah, the only thing, if you take a look at West, their military education, military level, thinking or geopolitical thinking or intel organizations, They are not very bright. The only thing they know, they are impotent militarily, they are impotent industrially, essentially. And the only thing they know how to do is what is called indirect strategies. It's a cowardice. It's being covered, essentially, because they know they cannot fight directly. For example, Russia, they will lose. You cannot defeat Russia on the battlefield, period. It's just, you can spin things, invent things, and what have you, but you just can't. And so what indirect strategies? Yeah, let's create this, tension, belt around Russians and somehow, try to suck their resources dry. Yeah, but as you can see yourself, it actually turned out to be the other way around. Okay, so they miscalculated, as always. The combined West is dead. It's in the process of decomposition. It's not like it's may die. No. It's a fait accompli. It's dying. It's nothing could be done about it. It's the process of the decomposition. And the only thing which with the West was United States bought for the combined West after the World War II. I mean, talking about Europe, some life, they were supposed to be, Europe was supposed to be dealt with and done with after what they committed in the World War II. And so this time is up. The United States itself is a bankrupt nation. It doesn't have resources. The only thing that it can do is print money, but even that doesn't help, anymore. It's like, the pain killing, which essentially your organism get used to it and doesn't react even. I know I did once recently, actually, about 3 years ago. I did the root canal and my tooth couldn't take any more this lidocaine. It wouldn't numb it. So they did it live. A pleasant procedure, make no mistake. So, and that's the same thing, and no matter what they do. And so they are decomposed, and look at their elites, look at their military. It's joke, okay? Bunch of the cretins, with no education, no culture, no class. And many people are, oh yeah, those elites, they have money. Yeah, you have money, so what can you buy for this money? And you say yourself, money doesn't buy you everything at all. So, and that's the only thing they have, but their real resources are pathetic, honestly, not designed for the 21st century. And when you look at this, across the whole spectrum, so to speak, of the activities, the only thing they can do is this: terrorism, sabotage. This is what MI6 are good at, just killing innocent people, false flags, things of that nature. This will continue. They are cowards and they don't know how to fight. They don't have the ability to fight. They are impotent. And so this will continue. They will try to destabilize places, and they will continue to destabilize them. They will continue to do this in Middle Asia. We know how Afghanistan ended up, that Russians have to accept, Taliban and say, let's finish it. Of all other those elements, which is essentially the jihadi elements, even Taliban has to fight them, so it's they obviously have the issues with in eastern Iran with all this situation. So they will continue to do this because this is the only thing they can do. It's essentially a poison. It's the same as when the corpse decomposes, it begins to basically produce the corpse poison. You cannot even touch it because you will get poisoned, you will die too. So this is what happens with the combined West, and it will continue, and it is accelerating as we speak. And basically, it's coming back to what we discussed initially. Macron calling, Scholz called, actually, if you might remember, about a year ago. So they all try to do this PR, but these people in the system itself, the clockwork is completely broken. What do you expect from people of the intellectual abilities or lack thereof? Of Merz or Annalena Baerbock or von der Leyen or Starmer, or you saw yourself what those people are. Most of them are downright cretins with the, just, it's not about IQ. They are mentally inadequate people. And look attentively what is happening in the United States with this, circus, which we observe now. And so with people like that, can you do anything with them? No, they don't even know what they're doing, so because they don't have no clue. They really don't. We live in the time after 500 years when the West killed its own expertise. It's dead. It's over. It's not there anymore. And what can I say? We just have to wait and see.
Andrei, here is the UK Defense Secretary talking about.
Yeah.
I wanna know your take on that.
And I announced that we would increase to £4 billion in this Parliament the investment that we make in autonomy in drones. That's more than double that was in the budget before. It's largely capital expenditure, and we will learn the lessons from Ukraine in being able to develop not just better and produce more drones for Ukraine, which we will do this year. We will increase by at least tenfold the drones that we supply to Ukraine this year. But
what the British government is trying to do, Andrei, what is their main goal, in your opinion, at this stage of the conflict? Donald Trump is, as we saw, he's not interested, and he wants to more focus on Israel, I would assume, than Ukraine, because it has some sort of priority for him.
United States simply ran out of resources, and that's United States. So now you have this Chihuahua. It's not even a serious country anymore. Sadly, it used to be it was empire. Yeah, they did the whole thing. But you have to keep in mind that the reason they're doing this, first, because they are morons. There are not a single serious military leader, and I guess the inbreeding and incestuous relations finally caught up with the British elites. They're just downright cretins. I listen to them sometimes. These people have no clue. They are living in the alternative universe, and the only thing they are driven by is their visceral hatred of Russians. Average British politician, or let alone British media corpus, if they tell me that, oh yeah, tomorrow there are like 100,000 Russian children will be killed, and they will just applaud. Those people have no human anything left in them, and they still pretend that they are British Empire, which they are not. They are third world country. They are sliding in there. That's where they will become, with no real serious technical expertise in anything anymore. They can produce overpriced garbage cars like Rolls-Royce or Bentley. The only thing which Britain has now are obviously the Rolls-Royce engines, which they produce, the last of the kind of, diamond in the British crown. But the rest of it is just dumpster, essentially. And yeah, it's sad that, and as I already stated, I empathize with British people. I empathize with the average Englishman and English woman. But the point is, they just hate it, and they want to pretend that they matter. They don't. They're pipsqueaks. They are nobodies. As I already stated, the only thing they are good at, killing Skripal's cats, killing people, civilians, false flags. And their military is a joke. The British military is a pathetic collection of nobodies. And when you look at it, so these are the people who think that you can prepare the cadre officer in 44 weeks in the so-called vocational school, that they call it academy for some reason, in Sandhurst. They're people from King's College or whatever it's just like, you scratch your head. These are not even military professionals. These are morons. And when this guy, what's his name, defense minister says they learn lessons, they not. They do not have the toolkit to learn those lessons. And not to speak about the fact that they, during the school aid provided to them by Ukrainians, and Ukrainians kill every day at least one division of Russians. They shoot down 150 planes, So they are about to capture Moscow. So this. So that's the information those cretins get in Sandhurst and King's College and General Staff Academy, or whatever the courses they have for mentally retarded. And so that's what they will learn. You cannot save them. You just can't. It's over. It doesn't matter how you try it. This is completely over. And is it sad? Of course it's sad. I'm a Western man. I am a man, basically who grew up with the Western culture. Russian culture is in many respects Western culture, So in seeing this and something which was dear and close to your heart culturally, especially, seeing to what it degenerated. It's not even circus, it's it's asylum, essentially.
Yeah, Andrei, we know that one of the main issues that everybody in the administration, in the decision, those people in decision makers in Russia are thinking of is about the cordon sanitaire or the buffer zone. What would that be, and how do they want it to be in terms of the future and whatever comes next, if they can get a Ukrainian settlement, if they can bring some sort of peace to the region? What is the latest understanding on the part of Russians about the cordon sanitaire and the way that they want it to be? It's going to be, and specifically, I want to talk about Odessa and Nikolaev, these two important cities for any sort of settlement.
Yeah, nothing changed since I was speaking about for a while now. It's a dual track, essentially, or either or. You can by essentially demolishing whatever are left now, the cannon fodder in Ukraine. That means you also there emasculated completely, because they're mostly men are killed there. So essentially, Ukraine will become a barren land. And it's already shell-shocked. The mental state of what's left of Ukraine is horrendous. It's the case for mass psychosis, and it's probably going to be worse than Nazi Germany, because at that time, at least Germans, they had the real culture to fall back on. So they had a great, civilizational importance and things like. Ukraine is nothing like this, and so it's either once the rest of it is demolished, and we know that it's attrition warfare. It's either starts the political process, which eventually basically fragments Ukraine, which probably is the plan, one of the contingency planning, and then of course what comes next, Odessa and Nikolaev it's the same scenario as it was with Zaporozhye and Kherson and things like that. And they fall back like fall into Russian hands as the ripe fruit. And there is of course the military solution, but then again, it still comes through the demolishing the remnants of the armed forces of Ukraine and making sure that NATO doesn't even pretend that it wants to go in. So, and considering the fact that what Vladimir Putin told Trump today. Again, it was the 4th of July, phone call. It wasn't long, for about an hour, and then they spoke to each other in English without interpreters. So Vladimir Putin speaks English. So it's the fact that Russians want to do it politically. I mean, while killing, as he stated, all aims of their special military operation will be achieved. That's what he told Trump today. I quote. So, and what are denazification and demilitarization? That means what? Ukraine will not have armed forces. Regime of Zelensky will be basically removed. After that, we'll have to wait and see. There are all kinds of things which could be done, including not only militarily, but on the what is called operative level of the intelligence and counterintelligence services, like FSB, like Ministry of the Internal Affairs, who are already deeply involved in denazification, finding out all those, Nazi sympathizers and sympathizers with the Zelensky regime, which is neo-Nazi regime. And we'll see. But no, I think Odessa is coming home. But how it will be done is, we just only can guess. And there are a number of scenarios which could be done. And again, do not forget, Russians keep in reserve 700,000 troops. And people say, where they are? Where are they? Why shouldn't they do this, huge aero offensive? They are there to make sure that NATO doesn't have any idiotic ideas. Because if they have, that's the whole other story. Technically, they cannot do it. They're impotent. But as again, because they're imbeciles, they might still decide that they can stir the pot. Russians will go in and will annihilate that force. And then what are you going to do? So it's kind of a serious political game here. And obviously, we do not know everything what Vladimir Putin receives as the daily briefing from the probably best human intelligence in the world and diplomats and so all kinds of things. So, they know what they're doing in Kremlin.
Andrei, do you think that even if the United States wants to somehow withdraw from Ukraine, do you believe that it's going to be possible to remove Zelensky because of MI6 and the way that the British government is totally involved in Ukraine?
Well, it doesn't matter what they want to do. Again, as I already stated, United Kingdom is a chihuahua. It's a essentially third world country now, So, and whatever they try to do, they're pathetic. Their economy is dwarfed by Russian industrial might, and they're just midgets, So, as I quote Colonel McGregor, they have Lilliputian military. So, yeah, they can off Zelensky or save him, whatever. So, he's guarded by SAS people, So, whatever they decide, Russians don't care. But obviously, they can do, when the time comes, all kinds of the operations, including probably try to extricate him, including the finishing of those SAS guys, But it's Russians don't care. The regime will be changed. And after that, we'll see. Britain doesn't have resources to do anything. They are paupers. They're beggars. They still think that, oh, we have London, we have city, we have money. It's a serious geopolitics. Money do not decide everything here. So it's.
Yeah, the removal of Zelensky administration, does that mean that these far-right or ultra-nationalists would not be part of the government, would not be
No.
part of that?
They will be hunted down and killed, or it best for them, or maybe for them it's better to be killed than face the tribunal and then be sentenced to for life or 25 of the extreme conditions in the Russian colonies. They would probably beg to be killed, So, and no, there will be no Nazis there.
And how about the western part? Is going to be unified? Is going to be, if a new administration comes to power, which would be acceptable for Russia in terms of the hostility that this administration had and has toward Russia, and somehow understand the importance of Ukraine for Russia and the cooperation between the government in Ukraine and Russia, which was one of the main concerns. How do you see that sort of issue for Russia?
Well, it's essentially Ukraine will be governorate. It will be essentially the territory which will formally have independence, but essentially it will be run by Russia. First, you have to understand they don't have economy anymore. I mean, the only thing that if you will remove now the financial aid, they have nothing. They cannot pay pensions. They cannot pay salaries. They cannot pay anything. Especially now that Russia is seriously demolishing the remnants of the industrial productive economy. And so as the result, that's why Russians are not rushing to do this. They do not want those millions of people on Russian balance and then suddenly starting to, Russia already had enough with what they imported from the 2014. And not all those Ukrainians who even carry the Russian passport are, there are many sympathizers with Zelensky, and that was a mistake on the Russian part. But that's the whole other matter. But realistically, can you imagine now when you have to pay, salaries and organize things for whatever remnants there, whatever, around 20 million people? This is large, okay? For any country, it's a huge burden, and so. I think one of the reasons for all what is happening the way it is happening, not only because Russia demilitarizes the combined West, which she successfully did, but it's because of the issue of what you're going to do with those 20 million people. And very many of those 20 million people are mentally not healthy anymore. If you look attentively at their behavior and how they behave, what they do to each other, and the type of the relations which exist today in Ukraine, which is complete paranoia, and it's just mental breakdown of the nation. So how do you approach? Russia doesn't want those 20 million people immediately on its balance. So it has to be some kind of the disinfection period when you literally have this corral, so to speak. Whatever those parts of the corral which eventually will fall off, which they will, like Odessa, Nikolaev Oblast, and things like that. Whatever will be remaining of Ukraine. I'm not talking about the western part. Nobody needs those Nazis, and let Poland have fun with them, So, and what you have this, Kiev, Zhytomyr type oblast, this, cluster of the remaining regions. What are you going to do with them? Yeah, you have to do the disinfection. And don't forget, as the experience of the World War II proved beyond the reason of a doubt, so that Germany was given the chance to rethink itself. It failed, with the exception of primarily the Eastern Germany, which was thoroughly denazified by the Soviet Union. But then again, these are the people who are remaining real Germans. They obviously, it was the protest vote, but they voted for alternative for Germany, which is the classic conservative European party. Nothing wrong with this. But if you look at the rest of the Germany, good Lord, I mean, unbelievable. This is completely psycho nation right now, doing a mental breakdown. And you have essentially scratch any German politician. Who do you have? Former Nazi. So there you go. So, and the same is going to be in Ukraine. Do not forget. We are talking about at least 1.3 million KIAs on Ukrainian side. Considering their size, do you understand what it means? Virtually every family has somebody who have been killed or maimed during special military operation. This is not good environment mentally for the nation. So it has to be, in some sense, isolated, let it simmer down, so to speak, and that's for serious political people, to decide how it's going to go in Moscow.
I think everybody would remember Zelensky for what he's done to Ukraine and his backers.
Yeah,
mostly
that's
in
what
the
it is.
United
And Ukraine is dead. It's essentially dead. Yeah, together with the West, it's decomposing right now. And so they killed the nation. It was a bad nation. It was freaky one. Ukraine could exist only as anti-Russian. That's it. Otherwise, it cannot exist because they don't have real serious history, real serious anything, So
just remembering Zelensky was called Churchill, was called hero, was called
intellectual level
way
people.
that they destroy.
He destroyed the nation. Yeah, not only him, the Ukrainians did it to themselves. So let's not, it's the same as Russians selected Yeltsin. Russians did it to themselves too. So they have nobody to blame but themselves. And I know this. And Russians they blamed themselves. And you see what happened to Russia now. So Ukraine cannot do this. It's absolutely excluded.
Thank you so much, Andrei, for being with us today. Great pleasure, as always.
As always.
See you
Bye-bye.
soon. Bye-bye.